nervous because I'm here now.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin. I'm here with my co-host, James Haskell. And in this episode, we are going to review the defensive side of the ball going into camp and just some stuff we're looking for. We're going to bounce around to a few positions and just let you know some stuff we're curious about, some stuff we're excited to see, and just to see how this truncated time, how the coaches will use this truncated time best to make sure they put the best team on the field. So, Jimbo, on defense, where are we starting?
We are starting with the big boys up front. Now that's right, them big old slobber knockers. And now we made a lot of improvements to both in the draft and on the free agency market as far as the big guys up front. So I just want to name a couple names real quick. Of course, you got big baby Brandon Williams. We acquired Calais Campbell. We acquired Derek Wolfe. But then we also picked up Matabuke in the draft in the third round. And then Washington out of Texas Tech in the fifth round. And then who else am I missing up front?
Well, we had Dalen Mack last year, and as well as Justin Ellis picked up in the middle of the season. Yep.
So we got a lot of bodies up there. Glenn, let me pose this question to you. How do you see the new vets that are coming in? You got Derek Wolfe specifically and Calais Campbell. You talked about it in the opening portion. It's a truncated time period. How do you see the Ravens balancing integrating those guys into the defense while also trying to bring along these young guys who are, at least I think Matabuke is going to have significant time on the field this year. So how do you see that balance happening in camp?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I don't think it's like offensive line where they always say an offensive line needs to work together. They need to build the continuity. They need to be out there together. I don't know if the same is said about the defensive line. And so the question to me is what's most important and what needs more time? Mm-hmm. Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe getting caught up to Wink's defense and vernacular and making sure that they're on the same page with Brandon Williams and the rest of those guys up front, or do they not need as much time because, these are guys that have been around a long time. They're both smart guys. I'm sure that they've seen these schemes before, and maybe the terminology is different, but there's one thing that Coach Harbaugh says is he made sure that their schemes are not only teachable, but very easy to learn. And so I don't know how much time they're really going to need as far as, I don't think they're going to need to dominate all of the snaps in practice and preseason to get caught up. I think it may be more important to make sure that you mentioned those young guys, Matabuke, Mack, Washington. Those guys need more reps because they're going to lean on them to keep the older guys and healthier for the majority of the season and certainly at the end of the season when it matters most. So, yeah, I'm interested to see that balance of getting Calais and Derek caught up, but also getting these young guys enough reps because they're going to need the reps. I mean, during this whole COVID issue, I'm sure the older guys, they have a lot of money. They're professionals. These are guys that they are pros. So they, I'm sure, have been taking care of their body. They got personal trainers. The younger guys, I don't know. I mean, they don't have the funds. They don't have the wherewithal and the knowledge to do as much probably as these guys on their own. So they may require more help with the team and more reps with the team. I mean, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think that the most important thing is to get those young guys up to speed because, like you said, vets are vets. They know how to do their job, right? It's not just a game to them anymore. It's a job. It's a way of life. It's a career. And so that plays a big factor into their preparation and the how they feel coming into the season. The one thing I will say, though, is that the one thing I'm looking out for, and this is right in line with what we're talking about, but I have a feeling that Matabuke, while I think he's going to get a lot of clock, and one thing I'm going to be looking for is how soon he's taken more reps with the ones than Derek Wolfe. Now, that might sound outlandish. Derek Wolfe's coming off an injury. He doesn't have a history of staying super healthy anyway. And I think Matabuke is just physically gifted. I mean, he is just a gifted kid. And at the end of the day, I think it's interesting the observation you made that that consistency isn't quite needed as much because if you want to boil down what defensive linemen do in a really simple phrase is they just mess things up. That's their job, right? Just to mess everything up in front of them. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, an offensive line, it's you have to be in sync and everything else. But I think that because of that, I think Matabuke is going to make an early impact and he's going to emerge quickly as as a favorite among the fans. So that's something I'm looking out for. But I agree with you as far as the rookies are going to be the priority here, most definitely.
Yeah, I
Now,
mean,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, I think it's nice to see Brandon Williams return to nose tackle. I think he'll be more comfortable. And yeah, Derek Wolfe, while he has had some injury issues, if they can get Matabuke and if they can get, Mack and Washington up to speed, it only makes their job easier. And I think it'll make Wolfe and Campbell more productive, even if they do lose out on total snap counts, because they'll be more productive in the snaps they do get.
Yeah, now let's stay up front per se, but let's bump to the outside. You got Judon who's locking down one side out. As far as an edge rusher goes, or an edge position, I think is how PFF talks. Distinguishes that position. But on the other side, there's a lot of bodies.
Yeah.
Right. You got Jalen Ferguson. You got let's see, Tyus Bowser. You got Jihad Ward, and you got Pernell McPhee. Yep. I'm really interested, and in camp, I'll definitely be watching what the balance is of these guys. Who takes the lead as the front runner, and who is it? How will Pernell McPhee be used in camp based on the fact that he knows the system, right? He knows the Ravens, and we want him to be healthy. We don't want him to run out of gas. So, of the other three, who is it that we really see emerge as the highest volume snap getter? Right? How do you see that going?
Well, I think the leader right now, it's a big make or break year for Tyus Bowser.
Right.
He's been around now for a few years. There's really no excuses anymore left for him. The opportunity is there. And I think Pernell McPhee, if the guys like Bowser and Jalen are able to establish themselves early downs, if they're able to stop the run, if they're able to set that edge and stop the run, that will give Pernell McPhee, that'll free him up to allow him to become a pass rushing specialist, which people I think forgot that he was leading our team in sacks before he tore his biceps. So he's not a guy that I think you want to have 80% of the snaps or even 70% of the snaps, but I think he can be very valuable if you can get him in there in passing situations. So yeah, let's make sure that guys like Bowser, I mean, Jalen Ferguson's going into his second year. You're supposed to make a big leap between your first and second year. So if Sack Daddy wants to become Sack Daddy again, he's going to have to start putting up some numbers and get a little bit more productive. Now, if they can't get it done, I mean, you could look at Jihad Ward and say, yeah, he had a good year. He did. He came in. He kind of settled down that spot. He was able to set the edge. Now, if you can expect him to just give you that, then that's fine. If he can come in and just be your downs 1 and 2 outside linebacker, that's fine. But if you can get more production out of those other guys, because Wink loves to rotate guys. He loves to share the wealth. He doesn't like to have guys in there for 85, 90% of the snaps like we're used to seeing back in the old days with Suggs and all these other guys that play every snap. I don't think he wants to do that with his front. So, yeah, let's get those young guys up to speed. Ellis, if you want to be our run guy, that's fine. I don't think we're going to get a ton from him. I'm sorry, Ward, if you want to be our run guy, I don't think we're going to get a ton from pass rush. Let's get our pass rush from Pernell. Let's get it from Jalen. And let's get it from Tyus Bowser on that side. And let's see what happens. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting because we might have one side locked up, but the other side, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a complete open competition greenfield position. The one thing I will say that I'm going to be looking for as well, you talked about him, Ferguson. I want to see how his body looks going into year 2 because I feel like last year he looked like a college football player. He didn't look like an NFL football player. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I'm wanting to see him a little bit more. I think even Mark Andrews, he looked so much more pro ready coming into his second year than he did his first year. As physically gifted as he is, he looked like in such better shape year 2 than he did year 1. And I'm hoping that Ferguson had that same discipline this offseason and really makes a jump. Now, let's move on to the guys behind him. This is an interesting one, and I'm going to keep riding this phrase. So if we hear it, all the national guys seem to bite us. So, if we hear anyone say blueberry marmalade and crunchy peanut butter, we know where it came from. You heard it here. But I'm referring to Malik Harrison and Patrick Queen. Glenn, how long is it going to take? How soon in camp will we see those two running with the ones together? I mean, is it just a match made in heaven?
To me, on paper, they look like they complement each other perfectly. So I don't think. I think if the coaches had some truth serum, injected into them, they would say they want this transition to happen very quickly. I think they like LJ Fort, and I think they like Alaka, for what he was. I think they're a little disappointed in Chris Board as of last year, but
yeah, he bores me.
Jeez, that was horrible. But I think LJ Fort will ultimately always have a role on the defense because of what what he does. He's good at running around. He's a fast guy. He's a guy they just paid a couple dollars to. So, but if I'm Alaka and I'm Chris Board, man, I'm fighting for playing time because let me tell you, Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison. To me, Patrick Queen's a 3-down linebacker, and Malik Harrison is an old school. Definitely dominant 1 and 2 down linebacker, and he could end up making a claim for himself as a 3-down type of guy. Now, I don't think you can't have 2 3-down linebackers typically on the field in this day of the NFL. So I think Patrick Queen will ultimately be our guy. But man, them two next to each other on rundowns is going to be terrifying. I just don't know because you got the big bulldozer with Malik Harrison, who I think people kind of shortchange his athleticism. And then you have the athletic, gifted, just incredible athlete that Patrick Queen is, and cerebral as well. I mean, I think that these two guys, if the Ravens coaching staff had it their way, would be the week 1 starters. But I don't think it'll take past week 4 for both of them to establish themselves.
Don't you get visions of Ray and Bart Scott back there together? You know what I mean? You got. I don't mean to put pressure on these guys because they watch every episode, so don't feel the pressure. But man, you just think about Malik Harrison just laying the wood on people and not having to worry about thinking too much, just being reactionary while Queen is back there doing his thing, displaying his athleticism, eventually coming on as like the captain of the defense. I see that.
You mentioned that. Do you think we'll see him with a green dot in camp?
No, I don't think it'll be this year. I think it'll be next year. I think that the truncated time period, consistency is king this year. I think Chuck did a good job, and I think they're going to keep it that way because it's just a limited time period. But I think that next year, barring any other pandemics or something of that nature, I think he'll eventually take it, but not this year.
Okay, that's fair enough. Well, so you like Queen and Harrison? Are they going to be taking over before the camp is over? Like, are they going to be week 1 starters?
This is what I think. Second half of preseason game 1, we'll see it, and we won't see anything else but that till the end of the season, barring health. Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, let's move back then. Let's go back to the smaller guys, the cornerback room. One thing before we get into anything, is this the most obvious position battle? Like, other than maybe like number 1 quarterback, I look at the cornerbacks and assuming we keep 6, which is typical for the Ravens, is there anyone else that you could see making the team other than Humphrey, Peters, Young, Smith, Averett, and Marshall?
No. No. John said it's a tough year for undrafted guys, and it is going to be one heck of a tough year. I think we got 1 or 2 corners that we took undrafted, and some of them have some physical gifts. Just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, though. I have him in my background for a reason because I think that he is the most forgotten player amongst Ravens fans and in the NFL, but he is the highest paid slot corner. I don't know if that still stands to be the truth right now, but either way, he's making this year $8.7 million. And he opted, Tavon Young is who I'm referring to. He opted out of surgery for that neck issue. And so to me, that concerns me because it's not like they did any repairing. It was just rest, rehab. So one hit could mess it up all over again and make it even worse. But let me ask you this. What do you think's going to happen if before I toss it over to you? I think that this is going to be one of those contracts that we really regret giving. I hate to say that, not because of his talent. I just don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy. And look, I don't want that to happen. It's not that I don't like Tavon. I just am nervous that we jump the gun and maybe outsmart ourselves a little bit. So if you had to ask me, I don't know if it's going to boil, if it's going to turn out. What do you think?
I'm like you in the fact that I'm nervous about it because of the fact, and the reason we're nervous is kind of like the reason I was disappointed in Miles Boykin is because we're so excited about the potential of what it could be. Just the fact, just imagine having Humphrey, Peters, and then Tavon in the slot. I don't know how you throw. I don't know where you throw the ball. I mean,
It's
I just
too good
don't.
to be true.
It's insane. But he's 5'9", 185 pounds with change in his pockets. Let's be honest. I mean, and it's not like a knee or an ankle. It was a neck, and like you said, he opted no surgery. So there's no guarantee that the rehab is going to prevent a further neck injury. And the way he tackles when because he's a smaller guy, the only way he can tackle these bigger running backs and tight ends and receivers is to get low. Well, when you get low, you can sometimes leave yourself vulnerable to knees to the top of the head, which I think is what hurt him in the first place, was some sort of a blow to the top of the head when he's going low to make a tackle. And I don't know how he can change that this year. That's the only way a guy who's 5'9", 185 can make these tackles is by going low and going the legs and leaving your head and neck area kind of vulnerable. So I hope that maybe there was some sort of breakthrough in technology and some sort of gear he's using that can help make it less likely that neck injury. But I'm nervous about it. I mean, without surgery, just relying on rehab and rest and rehabilitation, I don't know. I'm nervous, but man, it has the potential to be the hands down best secondary in the league. And if they stay healthy, I don't think it's close because I just mentioned those three guys. I haven't even gotten to Jimmy Smith, who has 83 starts as a Raven. I mean, who's clearly a talented guy, former first-round pick. I mean, this group could be crazy, but you're right. I think Tavon, while not the best, he might be the most important because he's the only natural slot. Jimmy could come in for Humphrey if Humphrey had to miss 3 or 4 games. He could come in for Peters. You wouldn't want him to come in for either one of those guys because those two guys are better. But the drop-off wouldn't be ridiculous. If Tavon leaves, Marlon's got to go inside, which is not his natural best position. He can do it. He's very good at it, but he's better on the outside. So I think he's the most important, even though he's maybe not, the best.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to put it. And definitely, that's something that you guys will make sure you keep an eye on in camp as we will as well. But this is the other thing. It could break right. And he could end up being like the comeback player of the year or something, crazy. Like nobody even knows who this guy is anymore. That's how you know who a casual Ravens fan is or not. I mean, that's how you call him out right there. Hey, who's Tavon Young? Right? Yeah. Come on. Yeah. So let us know, guys, what you think. Glenn, are we missing any of the positions? I know we didn't even talk about safeties because there's nothing that we're really going to be observing during camp. I mean,
right. Yeah, I mean, there's not much of a battle there. I think we all know that Levine will be penciled in, Elliott will be penciled in. I'm sure Geno Stone will have a spot, but those guys will all remain to be the most. They will contribute the most on special teams, and Levine will contribute the most on defense.
The only small thing I can say is I'm excited to see Chuck's progression as a starter and see that step forward. That'll be fun, and I also think that there's a chance that Earl could come in a little trimmer. I feel like last year he worried about putting that weight on, that muscle on because he's getting older. But I do think it hampered his flexibility and his small space quickness a little bit. He seemed a little stiff to me last year, and I think it was because he put on that weight. So, from a body perspective, that could be something to look out for as well, something I'll be watching. But let us know if there's anything that we missed on the defensive side of the ball as far as observations that are important to make during camp. Make sure to take notes here and let us know if there's anyone else that you think on the defensive side of the ball be a standout. If not, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to give us a like, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.